Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to all of you, including Hector Bones, Dan Crafton, Tim Ashman, and everybody welcome our new patron, Tina.
Hey, Tina.
Yay. We love Tina. We love Tina. On this episode of DTNS, lots of large language model companies want you to wear their AI. Intel announces when its CoPilot Plus compatible chips are coming and why a digital game store closing does not have to be the end of the world. Scott Johnson's here to help. Don't panic. This is the Daily Tech News for Wednesday, July 31st. After today, there is no more July 2024. In Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
In Salt Lake City, I'm Scott Johnson.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
I have to correct myself. There will be another July next year. I wasn't trying to imply we're done with July's forever.
Yeah, this is the end, guys.
No more July 2024. You have to wait a year. I know. It always at the end of July, you're always like, oh, I have to wait a whole year for another July. But yep, that's just the way it works. No more Christmas in July. It's Christmas in August, starting tomorrow. Let's start with the quick hits.
Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian tells CNBC that its IT outage caused by the infamous CrowdStrike bug earlier this month, which grounded thousands of its planes, will cost the company $500 million. Delta plans to seek damages from the disruptions. Roughly 8.5 million Windows devices were affected worldwide, which stranded airline passengers, particularly hitting Delta and prompting the U.S. Department of Transportation to open its own investigation last week.
Evernote users, prepare for your booze. Italy's Bending Spoons said it has acquired WeTransfer. That is a file-sharing company that is fairly beloved. It was founded in 2009, has 80 million active monthly users, pretty decent price for monthly storage. Bending Spoons, however, less beloved. They are the current owners of Evernote and Meetup, and they are often known for changing pricing plans and even laying off workers after they acquire companies.
Some mixed earnings reports fueled by demand for AI. First up, Microsoft, which reported earnings per share of $2.95 on revenue of $64.7 billion. That beat expectations. But despite overall cloud revenue of $36.8 billion, which was more or less expected, Microsoft's intelligent cloud revenue, that includes Azure services and AI businesses, only brought in $28.5 billion. It's a lot of money, but it's short of the expected $28.7 billion. Samsung reported higher than expected Q2 revenue of 74.07 trillion Korean won, roughly 53.45 billion US dollars, and operating profit of 10.44 trillion Korean won. That's way up 1,458.2%. Revenue is also up 23.42% from a year earlier. And Samsung says that's in thanks to demand for its server memory to expand AI investments. AMD reported net income of $265 million, a big jump from $27 million in the year-ago period. The company credits the spike to higher than expected sales of its AI chips. AMD says it expects around $6.7 billion in sales in the current quarter, and that's also above expectations.
A little over 4 months after launching the Nothing Phone 2A, Nothing has introduced the $399 Nothing Phone 2A Plus. It comes with a 10% faster performance rating, 30% faster GPU, camera gets an upgrade to 50 megapixels, and it comes with a $50 higher price. The 2A Plus launched in the UA, or will launch, I should say, in the UK August 3rd, and in the United States on August 7th through Nothing's US beta program.
The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission unanimously decided that Amazon is a distributor of every product it sells on its platform and therefore must assume legal responsibility for product recalls. The commission says Amazon has to notify customers about and then remove the products that are deemed dangerous that it sells. For the more than 400,000 products that are actually sold by third-party sellers but use the Fulfilled by Amazon program. Company not real happy about that.
The CoPilot Plus picture is now in focus. AMD's shipping its Zen 5 AI processors as we speak, Wednesday, July 31st. Though some of the 9000 series chips are not arriving until August 8th and August 15th. That's due to some rescreening. Nothing wrong with the chips. They just skipped a test and they're calling them back to do the test, and then they'll send them back out. None of these are going to be CoPilot Plus PCs at shipping. Microsoft still has to push a software update for that to happen. So even if you get a machine that has a Zen 5 AI processor in it, you're going to have to wait until after July 31st sometime for it to become CoPilot Plus. If you want a CoPilot Plus PC right now, you got to go buy a Surface from Microsoft or one that runs on a Qualcomm Snapdragon X series of chips, which the Surface also does, but there's others from Acer and Asus and ThinkPad and such. Those have been out since June, and while they are officially CoPilot Plus PCs, not all the CoPilot Plus features have launched, even on the certified CoPilot Plus PCs. Most famously, Recall, the one that was going to spy on you. That leaves Intel, which just announced it will have an announcement for its Lunar Lake family of Core ultra-mobile CPUs on September 3rd, so more than a month from now. That is timed to be just a few days before IFA starts in Berlin on September 6th. That's probably why they're doing it. Intel is promising battery life and efficiency that is equivalent to the Zen 5 and Snapdragon X PCs, and this is just a launch event. They have not made any details available about when to expect these chips to ship. Therefore, we don't have an idea when the chips will be available, nor do we know when laptops with the chips in them will be available. But one guess is by the holiday shopping season, you'll probably have 3 options for CoPilot Plus PCs. The software will have updated. You'll be able to pick a Qualcomm, an AMD, or an Intel chip. And when that happens, Scott, which one do you think you'll be most excited about?
Well, this goes to my whole point about I don't know anymore if I should even be excited. I feel like there's been a very egregious coordination error on the side of Microsoft and its partners, its OEMs, and I don't know if the excitement over CoPilot Plus at the time of its announcement will retain itself all the way up until these are finally available. So to say, hey, which one do you want? I feels like I got to wait longer because now there's got to be reviews. There's got to be, there's got to be some voices out there that people trust saying which one of these is the best, who's doing the best, combination of work with Microsoft and OEM. And right now, I don't have a horse in this race. And also, It just feels weird. I think they goofed. It feels like a goof.
It does feel, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of great choice for consumers, but it's a staggered rollout. Some CoPilot PCs that are certified as such still are lacking some of the cool features that people might want the PCs for specifically. And then we don't have a lot of information on the rollout of some of this other stuff, both from the Microsoft side as far as pushing out the appropriate software updates and from the companies themselves. Maybe that's not a big deal. If you're in the market for this, you want to have a lot of choice, and that sounds like that's where we're going at least.
Yeah, I think, again, the reason I said by the holiday shopping season they'll all be out is it's easy to draw a lot of conclusions now based on the fact that we only have pieces of these things, and we're kind of used to companies like Samsung and Google and especially Apple, just making the launch happen, right? Maybe we get a bunch of rumors like we're getting with the Pixels right now, but when the launch happens, it happens. And this is not that. It is fine. If you want to get a CoPilot Plus PC for some reason, you go get a Snapdragon X. I'll be reassessing this whole branding process in the holiday shopping season when I think laptops will just be CoPilot Plus for the most part, because everybody wants the most battery life out of a laptop, and Qualcomm for sure. Looks like Zen 5, the 9000 series with AMD, both have very much improved battery life. Intel is saying that Lunar Lake is also going to have very much improved battery life. So in the end, by the end of this year, everybody's going to be buying a CoPilot Plus PC, not because it's called CoPilot Plus or because of any of the features on it, really. They're going to be buying it because they're affordable, long battery life, efficient laptops. And that I think that's the biggest deal. And you don't have to wait for Microsoft to update the software for that to be true.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about this, but this isn't just like a flash in the pan trend thing they're chasing. This is the future of the platform being Windows and AI and their OEMs. So us getting all worried, or I'll say me getting all worried that this has been coordinated badly, or these kind of delays are bad, or having it staggered is bad. That may all be true, but in a couple of years, this is just all of them, right?
Yeah.
Like this is just what we're doing. This is the future of it. So maybe it isn't as big a deal as I think it is. If for early adopters who are just kind of waiting around trying to figure out what the best thing to do is, maybe they're at a disadvantage at the moment. But long term, this is like saying, oh, I can't believe we're getting CD drives in the 90s. I wonder how fast these will be uptick. And then before you knew it, everybody had one. It was just normal. It was standard.
I'd be more concerned about the fact that Azure and the intelligence sector didn't grow as fast in Microsoft earnings report, meaning that maybe not as many companies are seeing CoPilot as a positive, meaning that the CoPilot plus branding itself may not be that meaningful,
right.
Except for battery life and efficiency and all that.
Sure.
Well, if I say the name Avi Schiffman, you might say, that sounds familiar. It might be because he built ncov2019.live. That was the website that tracked and still tracks COVID-19. Pretty popular, even won a Webby Award. But Schiffman is now working on something very different. It's a no-screen, AI-powered device called Friend. Yes, Friend. You wear it around your neck like a pendant or a necklace, and it connects to an iOS device by Bluetooth. Might come to Android soon, but iOS for now. So Friend is just monitoring you through the day silently. It's listening to you. You can initiate a conversation. It's got a physical button on the pendant itself if you want to, start talking. Then it responds through an app that's on your phone. So it's always connected to the phone. Conversations can also be started directly through the app. So you've got some choice there. And then Friend will try to literally be your friend without prompting, such as wishing you good luck before a job interview if it knows that that's coming up soon. It doesn't promise much more than that. It's not a one-trick pony, but it's a friendly pony. Not a therapist, not a doctor, not giving clinical advice, not even really a productivity assistant. It's a companion. If the always listening part is like you're like I'm out, or at least it's giving you pause. Friend says, we're not going to store any recordings of what we hear. This is all on device. It is just monitoring so it can understand you as a person and be a good friend. In fact, if you break or lose the device, you lose your friend because everything's on the device. There's no backup method. There's no cloud storage. But you can manually delete all its data, including the text that it has sent you on your own, if that's something that you want to do. If you're interested, pre-orders are open now. Friend is $99 and it ships in January of 2025. So we're definitely in the era of companies saying, okay, what can we do outside of the smartphone experience that people will want?
Mm-hmm. I like that people are trying different things. I know it's tempting and fun even to just take pot shots and like, who would ever want that? What a stupid idea. But I think we need people to try like different form factors. I don't think the answer of like, but I can do that on my phone is always useful. For example, people say that about tablets, but people still need tablets. People said that about laptops with PCs, but people still found uses for laptops. There are form factors that we will find lend themselves to using large language models better. I'm not saying Friend is it, but let's try a bunch. We actually don't know which ones will work ahead of time until we try them out. So I'm all for all of this. Limitless has a version of this that's also $99. That one's focused more on meeting transcriptions. There's also BEE, which really wants to be an assistant, reading your notifications, sending you social posts. That one's only $49, but you have to subscribe and pay $19 a month. Those are all pendants, though. Everybody wants a pendant. That's the new thing.
Well, everyone wants you to want a pendant.
Rabbit and Humane. Good point. Rabbit and Humane ruined the pin side of things, so now it's we're trying pendants. But I do like that it's all on device. I like that they're leaning into like this monitors to you. I like that they're saying, you know what, a lot of people use chatbots for just chatting. What if you could just chat easier? I don't like that you have to pick up your phone to get the response. It would be better if it worked at least through an earbud or something like that.
Yeah,
these are kind of neat in the sense that I think they're going to be for me when the use cases get worked out. Because at the moment, having a little friend with me is not that interesting. Not for $100. If you told me it was 25, I might say, cool, $25 friend, let's go. That's never going to happen. But if this was like a little more notification heavy or something that was maybe doing some of the things a watch does, but I'm not a big smartwatch guy because I keep smashing them and breaking them and cracking them.
Sounds like you want the limitless one.
I kind of do, or maybe just the idea of having it small and readily out here. So a ring, I like a ring. I like a pendant. If I had earrings, that'd be cool. If it has to come in the form of like a necklace or something, that's fine too. Like
I have to say the friend pendant is better looking than the limitless pendant.
I tend to agree. Yeah, I think
that's
it does look better.
Subjective, but that to me.
I agree with your subjectivity in that case, but I need something that will do more for me, but also be not in my way all the time or something I'm going to break all the time. And I'm all for this experimentation. As you mentioned before, it's just cool seeing them try things, and I don't know. We'll see what sticks.
You mentioned smartwatches, Scott, which I think is interesting. I feel like it's like we're going exactly the opposite way that smart devices have been going. So, for example, my Apple Watch that I wear every day, like 24/7 pretty much, it's kind of the everything watch. But back in the day, remember the Nike Fuel Band? I had one of those too. And it was like, all it did was just monitor how many miles I walked. I don't think it did anything else besides that. There was an app, but it was like clunky. And you had all of these exercise or otherwise, early Fitbit, same idea. It was like a health monitoring device that was sort of specific towards something. And people who were into that sort of genre of devices kind of chose the thing that best reflected their lifestyle. Now, you can still do that. I mean, there are niche devices that are in that watch category, but most of them are kind of like everything devices that are basically just little computers. They're just different form factor than a smartphone. So it's kind of weird for me to go from the smartphone has everything. All the AI you ever need can go from your smartphone. But now you've got companies being like, but what if you only want to do certain things with a different form factor? It's like pulling certain things out of the everything device.
We always, when I say we, I'm not even just talking about you, Sarah. I mean, like everybody always says that until someone figures out the form factor that you're like, oh, but that actually is better. Headphones, for example. There was a time when there weren't headphones, and you could have made the argument like, there's a speaker on my radio. Why do I need headphones? And it turns out like, oh, there's some advantages to having it come to a different device. It's not as loud. You can listen to it privately, etc. And so unless we try different form factors, I don't think we'll find what these different form factors are good at. And there's definitely situations where you're like, I wish I didn't have to take out my phone. Yes, my phone can do everything. I wish I didn't have to take out my laptop, et cetera, et cetera.
One more point that I think the name Friend is off-putting to a lot of folks. It doesn't personally bother me. Friend.com is the URL for this device, which Schiffman apparently spent $1.8 million on.
Dang.
That is a pricey URL. But I think there's
Who says
something
you can't
about
buy a friend?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can buy friends. You just have to have a lot of money on hand.
It's just expensive.
Yeah. But I've had folks kind of recoil from that, like, it's not your friend. That's so weird. That's so dystopian. I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to see if anyone else feels that way. But the name itself, I think, it's sort of a tough sell because it better be a really great friend in that case.
Yeah, it better be the best friend possible.
How good of a friend is it? We'll have to find out. Yeah. Are you our friend? Show us by posting on our subreddit. It's a great way to let us know what kind of stories you want to hear us talk about. Let us know what you think about those stories. Talk to other people in the DTNS audience about what they think about those stories. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. We heard about the Microsoft earnings a little earlier in the show, but particularly for this segment, we should note that revenue from Xbox sales was down year over year, 42%. Xbox sales have declined 6 of the last 7 quarters, but 42% is the biggest drop yet. However, gaming content and services revenue was up a healthy sounding 61%. Microsoft CFO Amy Hood said, quote, I do think the real goal here is to be able to take a broad set of content to more users in more places and really build what looks like more to us, the software annuity and subscription business. I think we're really encouraged by some of the progress and how we're making progress with Game Pass.
Yeah.
On top of that, Xbox officially closed the Xbox 360 marketplace on Monday, so you can't buy games and downloadable content offered through the store anymore. On X, the Video Game History Foundation lamented the impact the store's closing will have on video game preservation. And then GameStop used this as an excuse to poke the bear, saying in a post, "Bet y'all wish you bought physical copies now. Buy physical." So, Scott, if Microsoft says, heck, cloud services, this is the way, I think we should probably expect more shutdowns, right? And if people are kind of worried about that, what do they do if their favorite digital game store is going away?
Well, in the case of the 360 store, it's really not that unusual. Nintendo just recently shut down multiple stores. 3DS and the Nintendo Wii U, both those stores were shut down. Those are a little more complicated because in those cases, there is really no place to play your games that you maybe didn't have forgotten to download since the thing was shut down. Some of that functionality remains. It's a little iffy over there. So I would actually beware of store closures more with some platform providers than I do with others. In the Microsoft one, I hate to say this, but it's a little bit of a freak out over nothing. Microsoft has made it a priority, and these priorities could change. So I'm not saying this is permanent or great, but they have made it a priority to be backwards compatible with digital purchases you have made through the service. And so if I bought something on the 360 back in 2006, I have examples of this where I've done that. And today I'm like, man, I sure like to play that again. Oh, but the 360 store is down. What do? I simply download it on the Series X or the Series or Xbox One or Xbox Series S, and all of those stores will still have that listing, will still show that I own it, and will let me download it and play it. There are some very few examples where the backwards compatibility isn't done or may never be done. But most of the games, especially the high-profile ones over there, have backwards compatibility. So GameSpot doing their little poke the bear thing is, I mean, I sort of expect it from them, and it's fine that they did it, but it does give more of this impression that when these stores shut down, that's it. Anything you ever bought there is no longer accessible, and it's just not true with the major platforms. Xbox and PlayStation both make it relatively easy to get your older items. Sony's a little harder because they haven't done all the backwards compatibility stuff and work. Microsoft has led in that space. So you can get it digitally in other ways. On PC in particular, Steam is very good about this. I can buy a game in 2005, 4, and that thing still just runs. If it gets delisted, and this happens all the time, the Transformers games, very popular first-person shooters, third-person shooters that were on Steam, got pulled because of some licensing thing between Activision and Hasbro. If I bought it during the time it was available, all I got to do is go to the store, if it's even uninstalled, and say, let's reinstall that, and it will. They just don't have it there for people to buy new. You can't just go in there and say, I'm going to buy a Transformers game today. But you can go in there if you already own it and download it and play it. And I would argue that the PC is the most friendly version of what we're describing here in terms of how accessible your old stuff is. To the point, though, of a store shutting down, this is certainly not the first, and it will not be the last. This is what they do. I mean, eventually nobody's using them in any measurable way, and so they have to shut them down. Else, what are you going to do? Just leave it on perpetuity for 1,000 years? Probably not. So what I want from these companies is what Microsoft has mostly done, which is preserve your purchases and make them available anytime you want them down the road. It may be tied to an account. That may be part of the future, whether we like it or not. And that would be maybe an argument for physical discs. But also remember that if you have online or if you have live games that you're worried about preserving, this has been a big problem, continues to be one. When they shut down a FIFA server for a soccer game for that year, and that's no longer running, if that game depends on that online connection to do things, you're kind of hosed. So just keep that in mind when you're buying live service games or games with live service elements to them. Those kinds of features may not work. You know, they're not going to work in perpetuity. I can promise you that. There's a lot of third-party stuff happening with like fans who figure out ways to spoof servers and make it see what it thinks is a server and then run the games anyway. There are some companies like City of Heroes famously said, you guys can take our MMO and make private servers. We will give you the license to do that. Here's a couple of rules, but for the most part, it's on you now to keep it alive, keep the hope alive, and keep it running. That's a lot better than it just being a dead game and nobody can access it. So we are seeing inroads in this. I don't see this particular announcement as anything more than this is standard for these stores. But don't go thinking too much that you've lost everything necessarily. You're probably going to be okay.
If I may, on behalf of these 700 people in the audience shouting in unison this right now, well, sure, Scott, this time. But what about the future? What about the next time they take it down and they don't do backwards compatibility? How long are they going to keep these libraries? Well, sure, Valve does it, but what about other companies?
Yeah, you're not wrong that we are dependent a little bit on the good graces and benevolence of these big mega corporations that can turn on a dime and pivot if it's not in their best interest. So that's a fine thing to be concerned about. Here's the good news. After all is said and done, life finds a way. And by that, I mean, players have figured out a way to do preservation when the companies won't. And the companies hate that because they want to control this stuff, but they also don't want to do the work to do it. Players do. And so I think that effort is enough pressure for a lot of these companies to keep the fire burning. And even when it's not, fans and sort of the I don't want to call them hackers, but they kind of are. They're
hackers in the truest sense of the word. They're hacking solutions. They're not malicious hackers. Right.
They're not going after anybody's data, but they're saying, hey, I'd really like that version of Call of Duty to run for a long time and not be thrown away. And so they make it happen. Yeah. So I think that you can always count on that as your bottom choice. But the companies are getting better at it. Nintendo has a big bit of pressure on them right now for whatever the follow-up of the Switch is, whatever the Switch 2 is, to actually do this for once, to have them be backwards compatible, to have your digital purchases move forward with your account. Like they're 10 years behind everybody else in this regard. So I really, really hope that happens with them.
One of the biggest weapons in preserving the compatibility of games is those 700 people yelling, right? It's like companies, even if you're a minority, companies don't want that out there. They don't want the negativity out there. So they will bow to pressure more often than you think they will, I think.
Yep, I think so.
All right, let's check out the mailbag.
This is one of the more interesting mailbags we've gotten recently. Corey sent us a photo of an extremely burnt iPhone and says, I found this while searching the rubble of my burnt house. Don't worry, the burn was intentionally done. Google identifies it as an iPhone 13 Pro Max. Pretty amazing at what happens to technology when it burns. The cameras look pretty good. I thought this might pique your curiosity. What's curious to me is that I don't own an iPhone, and I've never owned an iPhone. It will always be a mystery to me how it got here. I've attached a link to the burn video in case you're interested in a house being burnt. It went quickly. I wouldn't have had time to escape if it had not been done on purpose.
To which I responded, Corey, you're right. Where that iPhone came from is a mystery, but a bigger mystery is why you burned your own house down. And his explanation was sensational. He was building a new house. It was an older house. He said he loved it, but it just wasn't worth the repair. So they were building from the ground up. But it was cheaper to come to an agreement with the local fire department to let them train on his house being burnt down than to tear the house down. So it was a controlled burn with the fire department there, doing a training exercise, basically, which I don't think you're going to get the fire department to do that too often, but pretty genius on Corey's part.
Yeah, I've never heard of such a thing. It's probably not, it doesn't happen very often, but yeah,
I'm not sure you've had a listener. Amazing. I'm not sure you've ever had a listener bury the lead more. Like that is an amazing
I know,
story.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't worry, I was fine. We meant to burn the house down, but anyway, mystery, right? Yeah.
I love that. It's like I burned my house down. That's neither here nor there. But I've never even had an iPhone.
Yeah.
What is it doing here?
Just wild.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it's a more common thing than we think. The iPhone though is a mystery. He said no one in his family ever had one. He wonders if it was one of the firefighters that was training on the house, if it fell out during the training or something. There's nothing on it to identify it. The firefighters haven't said that they are missing an iPhone or anything. But yeah, hopefully Corey will keep us up to date on that.
You never had a friend go, hey, my phone's missing. And maybe it's in your couch or, I don't know. That never happened as far as we know. Guess he has to tell us.
Maybe it was like a burner phone. Haha, no pun intended.
No, that
It was like, I got to get rid of this thing. Throw it in that guy's
definitely
house.
intended. Yeah.
It really wasn't. That's what they're called.
That's amazing.
The truest burner phone you'll ever have. And then George wrote us on Patreon. As an Android-only family, I appreciate RCS very much because it lets us easily share high-quality pictures and videos over an encrypted chat. That isn't WhatsApp or Signal. I don't know why he doesn't want to use Signal, but apparently it's easier this way. And it's been fun to try out RCS with my iPhone friends, getting high-quality communication with our default messaging apps. Very cool. George,
How
thank you
about
for that.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody who writes us. If you've got a story that can top Corey, we want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Or just, feedback on tech news. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com is where to send those emails. And Scott, where should we send people if they want to keep up with all of your work?
Well, here's the good news. I have a show about video games that we do every Thursday, and it's called Core, and I've talked about it on the show before. The reason I wanted to mention it this time is there's kind of a big announcement coming with that show. So if you are into it, don't miss this one because there's a big announcement. Plus, we'll probably hit this whole closure of the 360 store and reiterate some of these details with a whole lot of fun and stuff between friends. So come check it out. That's Core on Thursdays, frogpants.com/core.
Okay, so Ken Wharf, my wife's grandmother's house was used in the same manner. The volunteer fire department used it for training. Amish Overlord, I've heard the fire department's having practice houses, but not letting them use one's own house for training. Clinton Woodward saying they do that quite often. Local fire department burned down an entire subdivision over time that was bought out for commercial development. So, yeah. My neighbor is going to do that with another house they own, says Larry in Atlanta. This is apparently quite a lot more common than we thought.
I learned a little something today.
Indeed. I think we all did. Patrons, stick around for the extended show, Good Day Internet. Meta's AI was ignoring, then denying information about the attempted assassination of President Trump. We're going to talk about why that was, and when you try to force accuracy, you don't always get accuracy.
You can find our show live Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is 2000 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We do it live. We're back tomorrow doing it live again with Justin Robert Young joining us. Talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.